Warriors rise. Hey, what's up, everybody? I can see the comments are already going crazy. Excited and honored to be with my buddy, Waters Above Crypto. So we have some exciting stuff coming up, Warriors. But before we kick it off, I want to share with you guys, this is the greatest time in human history. And what we hope to do as we continue to interact, we're going to be doing these consistently throughout the next year as we connect our communities together. And what we want to do is share with you that this is nothing new under the sun. So I'm excited to bring Waters Above on and really talk deeply about what's happening within the quantum financial system, what's happening in the spiritual world, and just kind of connecting with each other and bringing our ideas together. And so we're going to talk about a couple things today. We're talking about the Year of the Tiger. We're going to break down the Super Bowl, the upcoming full moon, which is tomorrow. We're going to talk about Pluto's return, more for a selfish reason. I'll be actually on a spiritual journey or a journey into the unknown next month or next week, actually, on Tuesday, 2022. And I think I've been kind of beaten to death that date out there, which is really exciting. But first of all, Waters Above, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Awesome. Anything new in your world and exciting?
Yeah, lots of things going on. I'm actually working in the midst of designing a exit strategy kind of blueprint program that'll be added to my current mastermind course. So that's pretty exciting because I've been making this course for pretty much a year and a half now, and it has over 100 videos, and I've been purposefully sort of waiting for this moment of the bull run to kind of give the content out fresh with the current market structure that we have. So yep, that's been kind of a project that I'm working on, and lots of decoding stuff on the way. I do gematria, numerology, astrology decoding as part of my my thesis around how I analyze the markets. And so I'm working on a lot of presentations for people to kind of fill some of the gaps into the reasoning as to why the market does what it does and why the financial how finances have gone over the last 100 years, discussing the S&P 500 more, and the birth of the dollar and what's gone on and why it's happening.
That's beautiful. And then we're very honored too. You're coming to our private community on Thursday, so we're very, very grateful for that. So let's dive right into it. So first of all, I want to share with you guys, I want to let the cat out the bag just a little bit. So Waters Above and I, through popular demand, we are actually working on a program together. I'm not going to release exactly what it's going to be, but we will be announcing that to you guys very soon. You'll be able to go through a program with Waters Above and I. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be announcing it on this channel here as we do our interviews. So first of all, I want to talk about 2022. Very excited. It's Pluto's return, right? And so you were sharing with me, I'll be on a journey. I'll be out of here. I'm kind of leaving for a little bit. Don't worry, everything will continue on with our YouTube channel for all the listeners out here. But can you share with me a little bit about what the significance of that and what we do and don't know about that date?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, it's the Pluto's return time frame. So it's pretty important because this event doesn't come around too often. The last time that the United States had its Pluto's return was in 1776, and precisely around the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So it has to deal with kind of many things, but some astrologers out there who study astrology have deemed this sort of Pluto's return as a fall of civilizations. So this goes back to sort of the biblical conversation of what was the first will become the last, and what was the last will become the first. So, and this is kind of an interesting time frame, like we were talking about before we kicked off this interview, how you can see there's just so much fear being pushed on the world stage left and right, whether it be finances or conflict of war. And this is pretty much how the setup goes, so it's interesting. And the one thing I can say is, because the last time this happened was over 240 years ago, there's no human alive today to explain what really happened back then. But of course, we have the stories, we have some of the historical data to play off of, and it's definitely a very pivotal time in the world. And perhaps, we've been seeing this setup for the last 2 years since the pandemic started. We've been seeing the world change quite dramatically. And on a more positive note, from a more spiritual and conscious perspective, we've been seeing a lot of people becoming quite enlightened during this time frame. Yeah. So there's been a lot of interest out there towards things such as decoding, which is my work. And there's been a lot more people kind of going more the entrepreneurial route, creating their own businesses, figuring out streams of income, being more savvy, with the way that they're living their daily life and kind of breaking away from the system. So it's beautiful in that regard. And perhaps this big Pluto's return cycle has something to do with that. Because of course, if it's a time horizon of 200 plus years, it's not just this exact day is going to be the most important. It's a kind of like a window of time, if you will. So all energy, it has this window, and of course the bigger the cycle time frame, the wider the amount of energy is. So I would actually venture to say that this energy started kicking in 2 years ago, and it'll probably last another 2 years. And this is very sensible. Just when you analyze cycles, you always have a little bit of a window of time.
Okay, let's dive into decoding. So this is something that's pretty, so I'm not a big sports fan, but I did watch the Super Bowl halftime show to decode it myself in regards to how I do my own decoding. Now, there's been a lot of thoughts. I'll share with you mine from a macroeconomic perspective. I love Ray Dalio, and then I want to hear your decoding of what's happening with the Super Bowl and then the timelines that are happening. So my decoding is, you got the Super Bowl, right? You're putting people in the Coliseum. You got the crypto bowl going on. You had the older generation. You had Snoop Dogg. You had Dr. Dre bringing a whole new older generation to put their eyes on this crypto bowl, right? Then you have the emergency meeting with the feds on Monday. So we know they're most likely going to be raising interest rates, right? And then all of a sudden in California today, everything, the mask mandates lifted. Okay. And then tomorrow, Russia is supposed to invade Ukraine. And so what I do know based on my studies with Ray Dalio and the economics cycles that we go through, and if you haven't checked out Ray Dalio's books, I highly recommend you dive into them. He went back 500 years and he was just looking to study history, and he saw these patterns that happen. And the third in an economic cycle is war. And after war, we know what happens. A big societal shift happens. So I'd love to hear your perspective on the Super Bowl, the numbers being the Tiger and the Bengals, the Bengals and the Ram. So what is your thought process on the Super Bowl and some decoding on that?
Yeah, well, you're definitely onto something when you're bringing up an event like this on the world stage and how it plays itself into sort of its future. I look at everything that happens, especially dealing with the United States of America, as sort of a bigger decode in and of itself that affects everything that happens in the world stage. And one of the greatest examples of this is Hollywood. Hollywood is the sort of influencer of our perception. There's so many movies that have come out of, showing us historical movies, and they've completely manipulated and indoctrinated the way we perceive reality. And it's, movies about slavery, movies about whatever was going on in our reality. And we just blindly accept whatever Hollywood teaches us. And with that being said, there was definitely a setup here with the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, Los Angeles is where Hollywood is, and the Hollywood is from the holly tree, which is the Druids who would use this wood to actually make their magic wands. And Aries comes back to Ram. So when you're getting into the astrological thing, Aries is Mars, and that's the god of war. So who just won? The god of war, the Los Angeles Rams. And the ram's horn is something that is blown in Judaism. They blow the ram's horn, and this has everything to do with the prior interviews that we've done together, actually, where we were talking about Shemitah and how we're in the 7-year cycle. So there's something quite interesting going on between this particular Super Bowl ritual and the way that they had those 5 individual characters that they used for the Super Bowl halftime ritual. I mean, it's quite extensive, but just the basic numbers for people to wrap their mind around, basic decode. There's 2 Super Bowl wins for the Los Angeles Rams. The first one was in the year 2000. Which in the rules of numerology, 2000 is just 2. And then they just won the recent one in the year 2022. So the numerology behind that would be the 222. This means that they won 2 Super Bowls 22 years apart. Right there. I mean, it's just, so there's some numbers going on here, and the 2s are very, very important in this whole thing. 22 is a master number that has to deal with like the master builder, master destroyer number, has to deal with resets, has to deal with, just big change. And then the next big master number is the 33. So, that's a whole other thing to get down on. But when it comes to this particular Rams Super Bowl win, the reason I knew the Rams were going to win had to deal with the Facebook and metaverse stock prices having a huge plummet a couple of weeks prior. So back when Mark Zuckerberg started giving out the advertisements and promotion for Metaverse, they showed you this imagery of a tiger above a ox and kind of biting the neck of the bull. And this symbology has everything to do with last year being the year of the ox and this year being the year of the tiger. So the year of the tiger started on the last new moon, which was February 1st. It was actually about 15 days ago. And this number 15 is really important because tiger in gematria equals 15. And this, I believe, was a bigger reason why a lot of people thought the Bengals would win. But what we see with this symbology of the metaverse kind of showing us the tiger in a power position, but then we saw the Facebook stock plummet. What I was doing was I was associating that symbology of what has to deal with the tiger, it's going to lose. So this was a historic stock drop for Facebook. I mean, it's mind blowing. Like, and it barely has recovered at all. It was huge, especially for a company that had so much updates and big change coming, and it was very promising. The crypto community was really focused on Facebook because of this change, and I think it was all a setup. They wanted to get people super excited about Metaverse. They wanted to get people really like invested in it, thinking that it was going to do really well, and it was the complete opposite. And so it's kind of interesting too, because in astrology, whenever you get a Jupiter placement, and Jupiter comes back to the tiger because Jupiter is the striped planet. But whenever you have a Jupiter placement in your chart, that's typically a sign of good luck. And so it's always like these tiger connections have been quite negative. And that's kind of where I came to the, I think the Rams are going to win. So it was more an intuitive thing, but there was enough symbology there for me to utilize my decoding and say, okay, this is a good choice.
That's freaking awesome. Okay, so I'm going to share with you my decoding and based on who was there. Number one is they needed, so my age group is 45 and above. I'm 46, going to be 46 next month. And so the biggest group of people that are having trouble, this is my opinion, moving into the quantum financial system, blockchain, metaverse, all that stuff is the older population, right? So this allowed a lot of people or encouraged a lot of people that normally wouldn't watch the Super Bowl. And then they had the crypto bowl, right? And then if you really watch the Super Bowl commercial, what I do is I slow things down to 25%, 25 speed, and I watch it slowly. And if you look at when Eminem comes out, right, there's a group of kids sitting like this, and they're like just programmed, right? And then if you look on the right, they had a mark on their right, which that was glowing. And then they all rushed over to Eminem and they were like doing this praise thing. And then all of a sudden, once Eminem dropped to his knee and then they transitioned, then everybody was in prison suits. And so I walked through that in my mind. I'm like, okay, as they program, then they mark you, and then all of a sudden you're in the prison suit. And it's like such an interesting dynamic as we transition. Nobody was wearing their mask at the Super Bowl, right? Which is LA has some of the strictest rules in regards to the C word. And then we go into Tuesday, and all of a sudden that was already in the documents to release the mask rule. All of a sudden, I guess the C word is good now. So everybody takes their mask off in public and at work. And then the Russia Ukraine narrative going on right now. And then I study the economic cycles with Ray Dalio. I'm like, wow, this is pretty interesting, because with, Ray Dalio talks about there's upheaval and, religious going against each other. It's a political, and then it causes separation in between people. And then the separation is caused between people. And then the last cycle is war. So is there any decoding in regards to what's happening with Russia, or is there a way to decode that?
I think it's 100% a psyop.
Okay.
Like, I don't think any war will happen right now. No war will happen. This is 100% media driven from top media cycles to push that into your subconscious and make people fearful. Yep. Like it first of all, I'll give a very basic thing for people. They've been pushing this date of Wednesday for so long.
Yes.
Would you tell your enemy you're going to invade them on a specific date?
Right.
Like Coach JV, if I wanted to rob your house, would I text you 2 weeks before and say, hey, I'm planning on robbing your house next Wednesday?
I hope not. I'll be waiting for you. So yeah, I get it.
Show up and have a beer together. But so I mean, like, this is the thing. It's like, if people are able to talk openly on the world stage about the exact date that there's going to be a quote unquote invasion, it's like, wake up, guys. Wake up.
Yep.
And
Yes.
stop letting all this war shit get to you, because think about it. Aries, the god of war, this is all about the lower chakras. This is all about being in that, like, just being in that dark, fearful, overly sensitive and anxious. You got to shut that TV off, man. People are spending way too much time on Twitter, like just looking at whatever's trending, and they're not bettering themselves. And right now, like, the way that I roll is whatever I'm seeing be popular, I think the opposite.
Yes.
So I try to stay away from whatever's popular. And it's kind of sad to see so many people giving up their energy to this, because that's really what it is. The people who are running the show, they're just energy vampires. Like, this is an energy harvesting experiment. Every aspect of it, from the crypto market to whatever's going on with Kim Kardashian to whatever, like this war thing, it's just another mechanism of the entire like realm of stealing people's energy. And I won't even use the word stealing. We're allowing them to take it. We're giving it to them, so there's no stealing at all. We're opening up our door to the enemy.
It's interesting you talk about the opposite. So I did a video this morning on the open banking system, and President Biden had done a executive order that was talking about this new open market that they want to create. Is basically a one world. And it's like, as you said, opposite. Everything I read in there, just reverse it backwards. Just put the opposite, and it's going to destroy markets, destroy enterprise, create more separation. And it talks about bringing people together and financial inclusion. And there was an interview on Bloomberg that one of Johnny Crypto had sent over to us from our research team, and he was like, it was wild that at minute 16, it's on the video, they talk about the Russia and Ukraine and the SWIFT system. They literally bring up the SWIFT system, and I'm like, oh, here we go. There's the narrative. It's going to be something about the SWIFT system and the financial system. So what are your thoughts too on diving? And we're talking a little bit about the market right now. Like, what are your thoughts on no predictions or anything like that, but where do you still see the market going? People keep asking me, are we in a bear market, a bull market? I'm just a fundamental investor. If it goes up, I use my exit strategy. If it goes down, I buy the dip of fundamental cryptos. Like, what is your thought based on maybe some decoding? Where do you think the market's going with the fear of war and stuff like that?
Yeah, so big thing that I would say is I believe that the eclipses play a huge role in the market direction. So we've seen the eclipses play a big pivot point in wherever markets are going, whether it be up or down. And we don't have an eclipse until April 30th. And then the following eclipse after that will be in May 16th, I believe. So I'm looking at the market bullish up until latest early May. And this has a little bit to do with Satoshi Nakamoto's next birthday. Satoshi Nakamoto, of course, is a completely made up person, but this information regarding this character is massive when you're decoding, because it's always the quote unquote enemy always gives you the truth in plain sight. So anyone who was decoding Satoshi Nakamoto from 2019 to 2020, you could have predicted a massive bull run by the code, because it was right there in our faces. The same thing when it comes to the huge increase in price in 2017 and the crash in 2018. You could have been utilizing this code to see what's going down here. And one thing to mention, this 22 number is really powerful. And April is the true second month of the year, according to the original calendars before we had the switch in our calendar due to the Roman Empire and Julius Caesar changing around the entire calendar system. So that's another thing to take into consideration, is the true second month being April. That would be like the true 2222222. So I'm really interested in that February 22nd date, because April 22nd, excuse me. Because that's a little bit shy of the next eclipse. And we see that the markets like to top out a little bit before eclipses, and then they have huge pullbacks. So that's one thing I could say from like a perspective of decoding and using astrology, a basic astrology actually. And the other thing would be, we typically see bull runs have somewhat of a relief rally when they really end. So what we've been seeing right now is Bitcoin just every week mostly moving on a downtrend, and that's not a normal way to end a bull run. Typically you end a bull run in euphoria and everyone's super like excited, and it's a rug pull. And some people have come out and assumed that the rug pull happened last year, like around April, and that's completely sensible. But since then, we have seen isolated cryptocurrencies and isolated projects just do really well. You know, like in November, we saw a lot of new all-time highs for coins like Algorand. And, you know, so I mean, there wasn't necessarily just a finality of a bull run across the board. There were some isolated pumps. So it's making me feel like this is a little bit of a different environment. We must have had somewhat of a Fed-driven bull run back in the beginning of 2020, like after the March crash. We must have had that like from March, April, all the way until the transition into 2021. That was absolutely driven by central banks. And then what happened was once we started to top out for Bitcoin and these altcoins started topping out, I think they started letting retail play with too much leverage. Like too much leverage was involved, in retail is the least sophisticated player in the game. So they're going to be doing bad things all the time. They're always going to be making mistakes. When the market's supposed to have a pullback, they're going to, you know, want to go the opposite. And this creates an environment that's very volatile. So the long and short of it is we've just been having downtrend all the way up until like maybe a week ago. I think it's time for a little bit of relief for the crypto market. And I think some coins that are suppressed, such as XRP and XLM, I think these are the coins that are ready to have a really big move. And that's not a prediction. It's just based off the overall liquidity rotation. We've seen certain coins be part of that rotation, and we've seen some other coins not. And I think it's about time that we see particularly the ones that are suppressed to have a little bit of a run.
It's game time. Do you mind if I veer the conversation into a little different direction? Because I want to dive a little bit deeper with you. And I have some. Do you mind if I ask you some questions about like just life in general?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I want to veer this a little bit because, you know, we talk about crypto a lot, and I want to so as a human being, right? So coming here as a human being, you're born into a family, and so for example, I'll talk about my journey personally. And I don't know is there a way to decode people as like, for example, I've been on this journey where I was indoctrinated into the system big time, right? My parents did the best they could with the resources they had, right? They did a great job, great parents, all that stuff. But I was obviously indoctrinated into a system. And as I broke free from the indoctrination system, my life has taken a completely different path, right? So some people could say that's divine direction, or some people could say there's someone, you know, guiding me, or someone could say it's just chance. And so as you go into, can you decode your life? Like in regards to, for example, my path is completely, my daughter said it, I'm like 3 different human beings, right? I was 16 years ago, I attempted suicide. I had a drug addiction. I became an executive. And now I'm this, you know, guy who found himself, who's on the spiritual journey. And I'm the happiest I've ever been. So is there decoding for your life as well as a human being? Or so I went through my human design, and that has really helped me because I'm a pure generator as a human design. And for human design, it's like, I'm supposed to just test, create, test, build a foundation, and create safety for my tribe. That's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So I'm in alignment with who I'm supposed to be, but I was in corporate. I was completely out of alignment. That's why I had stomach issues, depression, anxiety. So what's your opinion on life? Like in regards to like, is it divinely directed in your opinion? Or is there systematic things like the market where there's coding to everything?
Yeah, well, definitely you could decode yourself with tools such as Gematria and many more things. Like, I mean, I would veer that sort of thing towards one of my close friends, Logan, over at Decode Your Reality. He's an amazing decoder. So shout out to him because his system is very comprehensive for people. My system is very comprehensive for the markets, financials, and more of the things that have to deal with this artificially AI driven realm that we've entered. So my work is very good with like this quantum realm and the technological age. And what I've been doing in my work, which leverages on answering your question, is I've been utilizing the mythologies. So going back to Greek and Roman mythology, Egyptian, Babylonian, and I've been taking this information of the past and applying it to what I'm seeing in the now and seeing the connection here, because everything was stemming from those mythologies, everything, even the way the courts are built out, the laws, the words we're speaking right now, they're all coming back to these Greek gods. And I think that's a very important thing. But one thing I want to touch on that you said that I think is important is you said that your daughter mentioned that you're like 3 different people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So think about the story of like Jesus Christ. And this isn't about religion at all. This is just this is just a basic example. Like Jesus was like a child, carpenter, and then he became hermeneutics and spent this like frame of time being, just learning the wisdom. And the truth of that matter is this individual, and this is an individual that's been plagiarized across many, many, many religions, going back thousands of years before Jesus Christ was even a thing. And this hermeneutics stage is when you go to the mystery schools. You go learn about the wisdom and the sacred teachings of your guru or whoever it is that you're seeking the wisdom from. And then step 3, the third version of you, is the one who goes and teaches this wisdom to others. So you have this process of like, you grow up in the regular society. You know that you're special because you don't resonate with the majority of the people in your society. This pushes you to a place where you have to become hermeneutics and actually learn yourself, learn thyself, or know thyself. And then during this process, you become, I'll admit it, you become egoic. You sort of become a little bit ego driven because now you think you know the truth. So that's the first stage of stage 3. You could break every stage down into stages. So stage 3, where you're going and you're a teacher now, you're a guru, you're a master. You're going to want to teach everyone what you know. Then stage 2 is the response to your teachings, and this has to deal with the worship and the crucifixion. And then stage 3 is the final outcome of it all, which is letting go of the body, kind of the ascension. That's the final stage of all of us. And in the female, like divine feminine side of things, you have the mother, the maiden, and the crone. So this has been anthropomorphized into the waxing, waning, and the full moon. And then you have the new moon. But this all comes back to the woman cycle. Like a woman is who brings all of us into this world. She has a stage in her life where she can't do that. Then she has a stage in her life where she can do that, where she's bringing in life. And then the latter stage for her life where she's just a wise teacher. She's the witch. That's actually where it all goes to. It's like it's been demonized, a witch, but it's not. Like there's good wizards, there's bad wizards, there's good witches, there's bad witches. You could use those sorts of languages. And I know that's very esoteric and maybe above where your question was going, but it's all sort of important. It's all important because it plays its role into our stages.
No, I want to dive into that. It's really important too, because as you explain that, it's literally my life's pattern. And so what I believe, and I share with people, because I come from a very experiential standpoint. Like I don't have deep biblical knowledge. I don't, I've just come off of an experiential. So I spent a lot of time in self-development, a lot of time in silence, a lot of time in silence with God or omnipresence, whoever I'm communicating with out there that I believe is my higher self. And so what I've seen through my life is I was following an indoctrination system. And when I broke free from that system, there's been stages I've gone through. The first stage was me trying to share with everybody who I was trying to convince people. And now the stage that I'm heading into is I have literally last year just become me. And that may sound weird to people, but detaching from John Vasquez or JV, I am not anything. I'm just me. And once I became me, and this is what I try to help people understand, is like, I tell people not to, if people have their opinion in the comments, like, don't follow what I say. Don't follow what I do. Follow what you feel is right for you, right? And so when I became, that's when the floodgates opened for me and I started to experience abundance. But I was trying to be something, right? So like, for example, I'm leaving for a little bit. And why am I leaving? Because I just want to go sit. I want to go sit for a long period of time just with me and be uncomfortable in my thoughts and be uncomfortable in the things that come to me. And so I love that you brought up Jesus, because that's who I follow, is the life of Jesus and study, at a pretty deep allegory. And I like to learn from different people and different people's different perspectives and books that have been taken out and books that just all kinds of different stuff. But it's like, it seems like, this is a question I have for you. It seems like the indoctrination system completely stops that process of someone becoming a creator, right? It takes them out of the creative process, which doesn't allow them the opportunity to find thyself. And if they can't find thyself, they can control the self. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the entire system is built so that it creates a reliant individual.
Yes.
That's really the big takeaway for people right now. Like, have you noticed the pattern in religion and in cults? It's very similar. It's that you externalize your power And by doing this process, you have to be reliant on this new source of power you've been told is powerful.
Yep.
When a baby comes into the world, this is one of my favorite quotes that I heard from a spiritual teacher. And it was a woman, by the way. She said, when a baby's born into this world, it's not born with a Bible strapped to its ass.
Yep. Yep. It's so true. No, I wanted to, so I share with you. I've said this on live video, so you can go back and watch this. I said I have these weird. This is what I do. I sit by myself and I think about this stuff and figure out life. If I'm not with my kids and not with my companies, I'm just like sitting and I always think about this. Okay, so you imagine like there's a movie called Baby Boss, right? That my son had watched, Baby Boss. It's like this, the kids are coming from this factory and they come through the womb, right? And it's like, you imagine like you're Catholic, you're Jehovah's Witness, and they come with an assignment on them. But no, they come through the womb into this world. And if all the babies were just born into a room, right, and there was no religion, they would figure it out and become their own creators. And it would be a beautiful world because they would become who they're meant to be based on their individual fingerprint in DNA. But what we do is our parents teach us what they learned, and it's just this constant feedback loop, right? And every person is coming. So I've been trying to figure out what this is all about, right? Every person comes to be their own fingerprint and different DNA, because why would we all have different fingerprints and different? I mean, I'm sure there's tons of coding that goes into that, and it's like, so I think about that all the time. I'm like, and like I say, I'm not against anything. If someone believes something, I want to learn from you. I want to absorb it. I want to understand who you are. But the question is what you're learning helping you become who you are, right? Because I believe that if you externally have to look outside of yourself, that is not you. That is not you, right?
Well, it's not really maybe what we're learning that's making us become us. It's what we're experiencing that's making us become us. So what I think here about the baby conversation, like see the big difference between a child and a grown-up is a child is living and a grown-up is existing.
Yep.
When you allow a bunch of kids to just do whatever they want to do, what do? They play, they have fun, they laugh, they scream, they get into fights, they spit at each other, they kick each other, they just figure it out.
Yep.
Then we walk over to the kid and we say, hey, you need to act, you need to behave, you need to act better. What is the word act? It's making you pretend to be something that you're not in that moment. So we're teaching kids how to become actors.
Yes.
Like this whole world's a Hollywood stage. You have to behave, and we follow the laws. And who are making these laws? Whether it's the law of your church or the law of your state or the law of your relationship or whatever. So like as you become more free and you break these chains, you start to actually live more and exist less, because existence is forever. But when we're honing in our attention only to this yesterday and tomorrow stuff, we're always going to live in a consistent stream of fear, and we're never going to be able to experience the now. So that's one thing that's beautiful about children is they actually just live. They live their life. And it's sad how we do this to them with all of this, making them act accordingly stuff, because they're actually acting exactly how they need to act. They're playing out their code perfectly. See, the one thing about the decoding and the code, I know now based off my code that I was designed to do this. Like I know 100% my name. I've decoded myself. I've had other people that I love a lot decode me, and I know that what I'm doing is designed to be this way. But I also have to give a shout out to like my mom for just letting me be. She never got in the way of my. She let me fail. She let me succeed. And I am so grateful for that, because I know a lot of people don't have that experience. But on the other hand, my father was a drug addict and he was out of my life at a very early age. So I'm also grateful for him, because he taught me subconsciously what never to become, you know, but I had to have the discernment and the ability to see it as such, so that I'm not just hating this guy. And I try to push this model of, you know, thinking to everyone that listens to my work, because we're at a time right now where everyone wants to point fingers at somebody. They want to point fingers at God or Satan or Joe Biden or, you know, Klaus Schwab. Or how about you look in the mirror and look at yourself?
Yep.
Because you're the only person that truthfully exists. If Klaus Schwab is making your life suck, then you have no control over your reality. You're forfeiting all of your power to some entity that you don't even know.
That's beautiful. Yeah, well, Jesus says, "Be like the children." Why does he say that? And then also too, like, I have a young son and a daughter, older daughter too, and it's like, I remember when I was growing up, it was like when you would ask a question, children ask questions because they're curious, they're developing their conscious mind, and they're like, "What do we say?" Because I said so. They're curious, they're creating, they're trying to learn it. We teach them to be indoctrinated, to not ask questions, to not question the system. Like at a very young age, we're like, because I said so. No, they're asking a question because they want to learn. They're like, my son says, why can't I touch the hot stove? Because I said so. Well, because if you touch it, it's going to burn your hand. If you burn your hand, you're going to have scabs. Like there's a process that they're trying to learn. And then we indoctrinate our kids to stop asking questions. And so when they're in a situation in corporate America, or they need to take something in order to keep their job, they don't ask any questions and they don't question the system. And that keeps them indoctrinated. And then they think they need the job and they think they need the health insurance. And they think, because nobody asked. I started, for example, when I was leaving corporate America, I went to go get health insurance for my family. It was $2,700 a month based on how much money they did it based on how much money I made as an executive, not the fact that I was going to zero income to build a business. And I drove away and I thought that was it. I'm like, I got to go back. I can't quit. And I stopped for a moment. I said, wait, let me ask some questions. So I went back to the tax person. I said, so this Obamacare thing, it's called the Affordable Care Act now, but it was like, she said, well, there's other options. I said, what are those options? and she said, so I started asking questions, and I started calling around. I found this company called Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's a fund versus a insurance, and it's way cheaper to be cash pay. I pay way less money for insurance, or it's not even insurance. It's a co-op. Since 1988, these Christians have been just putting money into this fund, and it's better coverage than I've ever had. And I was able to cover my family for $400 a month, my whole family. And I was like, just because I asked a question, but I was taught to keep my mouth shut. I was taught to not ask questions. And we teach kids that at a very young, that's why you nailed it. Jesus, like, be like the children. Why? Because they're creative, they're growing, they ask questions, they're curious. But yeah,
it's interesting for people to kind of examine these words that we're sharing, because like the big thing behind what indoctrination is it's just some other person's opinion with zero proof, and they don't allow you to question further than their knowledge set. So this is what the entirety of school is, right? This is what all of education is. And what's super interesting about philosophy and all the great philosophers out there is I believe we're at a time right now, and this might be because of the consciousness grid or vibrational frequency change of our realm, whatever's happening. But people are actually becoming the least philosophical ever in human history. And I'm talking about on the grand scheme of things. People are falling for science and germ theory and whatever all these socialist, globalist tactics that are going on the world stage. And they're falling for the news. I mean, let's go back to the Ukraine war thing. Yeah. It's like people are losing all their energy to this shit. And, they're not, this is like the philosophical side of man has been completely just flushed down the toilet. And I believe the people who've become more philosophical have started to actually see the merit in just asking questions, not being so egotistical with the knowledge they have. Start having dialogues with people who don't think like them.
Yes.
And allow that dialogue to happen, and to be willing to be wrong, and to be willing to want to not be right also. Like, I've been working on this quite actively. When I don't know something, I'm just like, tell me more, unless I'm not interested. If I don't know what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I love it.
It doesn't bother me. Like, I have bills to pay. I have to take care of, man. Like, I'm trying to like do my life. Like, I don't have time for that. If you're out there and running Ukraine right now and you feel like you're unsafe, then you need to go where you're treated better.
Yes. Yep.
Like, you always want to go where you're treated better. Like, I know that sounds like it's so simple, but I've watched people risk everything for freedom. Yep. And that's where I'm at. Like, I'll risk everything for freedom. I'll risk my life for freedom.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the power of I was working to encourage people through living it myself, finding myself, because what I've become is fearless, right? I have no fear of death, zero fear. Maybe it's experiences I've gone through, but I have zero fear of death. I have zero fear of failure. And I'm like literally waking up every single day, learning and growing. And I'm seeking freedom, 100% freedom. I leave non-negotiable. I leave at 2 o'clock every day to be with my kids. 2 to 7 o'clock, I'm with my kids. Non-negotiable. That's how I'm going to raise my kids. My team knows that. For example, I'm leaving on Saturday. I'll be gone for 7 days. Non-negotiable. I'm just unplugging. And I think people just need to start to stand up more and also operate out of integrity. And that's something that is the next phase for me, is really integral management of my companies, of my life, of my conversations, and operating that integrity and say no when you don't feel like it's right. I mean, it's okay to say no. And we've been indoctrinated once again into a system that we say yes to everything because we feel like that's what we have to do. And I'm not talking left, right, up, down, mask, no mask, V, no V, but I've had so many people reach out to me from a spiritual sense. Like I'm having this, human worldly battle with, I got to take this V thing, right? And I'm like, that's up to you. That's your body, your choice. What, if you had to reach out and have a conversation that it made you feel that uncomfortable, then I think you know the answer. But the problem is that that integral plug, right? It's like I've been indoctrinated, but if I leave, there's all these consequences. There's going to be consequences no matter what. No matter what. Like I left corporate America making a ton of money as an executive. In the world's eyes, it looked like I completely screwed up my family. You know, we lost everything. I invested my whole 401k in this business. It failed twice before it ever succeeded. But I knew down here, I'm like, I need to keep going. It was like, just keep going. Keep going. And that helmet right there, the one that's above my head right here on 3/24, on my birthday, the year of COVID or 2020, right? We were trying to figure out, they had shut our business down. We had lost 78% of our revenue. In the world's eyes, it looked like we were going to go out of business. My Tom, who's running our facility now, the in-person, he, on my birthday, we're trying to figure out, we're like, dude, are we academy or are we a gym? What are we? And he comes walking in with that helmet. Outward confirmation. That's why I was like, I would love to go meet that guy that does the decoding, because he like walks in, he's like, presents me this helmet, outward confirmation, because I was open and aware, listening for the answer, right? Presents the helmet. We're full on a Warrior Academy. We went online and we went from going under to 4,029 warriors since that moment. Since that moment, I'm like, interesting. So what I hope people are hearing in this, through the negative comments, positive comments, is that you're hearing that it's time to like really go internal, like deeply internal. And I love what you said. It's like, it's not what Klaus Schwab's doing. It's not what Biden's doing. It's not what your neighbor's doing. It's not what your brother or sister's doing. It's like, what are you doing and allowing things to kind of fall into place? And so like, I'm really excited, man. We got something special coming up for you guys. Waters Above and I are coming together, and we're going to build a program for people to help people awaken through the step process from two different experiences, like two different experiential standpoints, and helping people awaken. And so as you went through your awakening process, because you shared, you know, your mom encouraged you to be yourself. Your dad, you know, he shared with us, was a drug addict. And how did that process go? I know we've talked a little bit about this on the channel, but I think it's important to revisit. A lot of new people watching, is like, how did that process work for you? You've kind of always been awakened in your journey, right? Because this is fairly new for me, the last 4.5 years for me.
Well, so for me, my process was making a lot of art and focusing on making art.
Right.
And I learned that, you know, my mom was super artistic, and but I ended up just getting into music really young, like, and I focused on that, and I focused on creating music, and I learned that the feeling that gave me was way better than the feeling of all the nonsense that was going on around me. So I don't know, I'm sure it's part of my code for sure, but I aligned with that sort of creative artistic thing really early on. And that's another thing for anyone, like, instead of giving your kids knowledge and wisdom, give them creativity.
I love that, which will in turn can turn into knowledge and wisdom, right?
Yes, because those who seek to create can tap in with the infinite.
Yes.
If you don't have any creative juice in you, how are you going to be able to actually channel in the true wisdom?
Yes.
You're just reading books. Like, anyone could read books. Libraries look cool. Doesn't mean you know anything. Just like you could have $1 million. Doesn't mean you're rich. Yes. Like, Bob Marley was being asked in an interview, like, oh, you must be really wealthy. And Bob Marley was like, that's not the kind of rich that I am.
Yes.
And the interviewer like didn't even know what the hell to think to that, you know, because he's probably coming from a place where riches means your bank account.
Yes.
And so anywho, like kind of the short story for me is, yeah, I was super questioning as a kid, and I learned that I love the feeling of questioning something and having someone get frustrated at me for questioning.
Love it.
So that was very early on in my journey where I was like, I would hear somebody say some bullshit, and then I would go, "Oh, I don't know if that's the truth," and then they would get mad because they're not used to that. And then I said to myself, like a light went off in my head, and I was like, "Oh man, everyone doesn't know anything.
Yep.
Like nobody really knows much, and they're not seeking to know much. They're just blindly accepting whatever it is that they're handed." So in this whole like kind of journey, I've resonated a lot more with people who are just okay with being wrong and okay with not being right and seeking knowledge and having all of the knowledge you absorb have. I'll say it like this. I think it's very important that whatever knowledge and wisdom you have has utility.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a job, if you don't have any way of creating a business, if you're not creative in making art, whatever that art form is, then whatever knowledge and information or data that you're bringing into your life, just please ask yourself, like walk up to the mirror, be okay with this be not going your way, but just question it. Be like, is this knowledge set that I'm taking time out of my life to get into, does it have utility for me? Does it serve me? Or is it just taking up space in my head? So, you know, this comes back to like the flat earth thing. It's like, I know so many people that can talk about flat earth for hours, but they're still working at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
And like they will act so egotistical and like they're so fucking smart, but they have no personal connections in their reality that are based in love. Everything's an argument, everything's a debate, everything's I'm right, and they have no community. Like the best thing about reality is when you have a belief system and someone else has a belief system and you could come together and hug each other.
Yes.
I think that's what the world needs right now. So at a very early age, like every piece of knowledge and information that I was getting in, I was coming from a more loving perspective because I was wanting community. I was wanting us to come together. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing right now on the world stage. Is like, I want to bring people together and I want whoever resonates with my words to give up this division. Like this new age thing is completely dividing everyone, all the aspects of it, whether that be, you know, whatever really. I mean, we've seen the last couple of years what it's done to people. I've seen people who have beautiful, thriving families. Just the whole family structure has completely destroyed itself because of the V or because of the mask. And it's like, you see what we're doing, guys. Like, it doesn't matter how much knowledge, wisdom, information, like actually information has completely destroyed your family because you guys believe in some experimental mRNA thing.
Right. And
you're
that's
going to let that get in the way of you and your wife? That's crazy, right? That's quite weird to me. But it is what it is, and it's continued to happen. So for me, like, I'm going to push the love-based information and try to bring us together.
Yeah, thank goodness too that you had that ability to, like, because you asked a lot of questions and it made people uncomfortable, and that's basically what happened to me in corporate America and how my awakening started. I was in executive banking school, CBA, and I started to ask, where does this money come from? I was so, because I have dyslexia, so my brain takes it just takes me longer to learn things. It just takes me longer. So I have to really ask a lot of questions. And I stopped asking questions. So I was making people uncomfortable. And I started to ask the question, where does the money, they just print it. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they're like, well, they just print the money. And I'm like, what do you mean they just print the money? They're like, they just print the money. And they're like, that's just the way it's always been. And all of a sudden something clicked inside of me. If that's the way it's always been, that doesn't seem right to me. But that's the way it's always been. And so I kept asking the question, and the response would be back. They would get offended, and then they would say, well, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. I'm like, but that doesn't make any sense. Why is nobody questioning the fact that they can just print money out of thin air, and then it's just numbers in a computer? And so I started studying the Federal Reserve and going, Jekyll Island and going down that rabbit hole. And I went deep down the rabbit hole, and I kept asking questions and finding people and asking and seeking and making people uncomfortable. And then I realized, like, holy shit, wow. There's a lot of things that I don't know and I want to know. And I kept asking. And then the one thing that I found was integrity. I found integrity because when somebody shares something with me, I listen, I absorb, and I research, and I take a deep dive on it. That's why I don't get flooded in and out of the crypto market, because, you know, I'll hear YouTubers say something. I'm not immediately jumping into that cryptocurrency or diving into it. I'm like, well, that's interesting. I thank you for sharing that knowledge with me. You mind if I ask some questions? And if they don't want to answer the questions, or they say that's the way it's always been, then I'm definitely not getting into that cryptocurrency. But that's what I, as a parent, so for, you know, as I learned from you and how your mom was, is like, as a parent, if my son asks a question, I sit down with him and I answer it. My daughter asks a question. It's not, she's 17. It's not like, that's the way it is. It's like, well, here's the reason why I do that. And a lot of people too, I was sharing this on another live, is I show my daughter exactly how much money I make per hour. And so it allows her reticular activating. My reticular activating system didn't understand wealth. It didn't understand wealth. It understood working for a paycheck and getting paid per hour. And all I wanted to do during the programming that I was developed in or indoctrinated in, I just wanted to get that hourly higher. And how, well, if I made 30,000, or if I made 40,000, or if I made 100,000, and then one person blew my mind, is that it was my first investor into this company. They said, it's just numbers, man. It's 0 times 0 to get to the next level. And he said, you got to remove the block. He's like, why are you even talking about making $1 million a year when you could help this many people and you can make 10 million a year? And he said,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like we worry sometimes as people who look at numbers all day. Like I would know because I do gematria. So like my life's work is staring at numbers, but like we really, from a spiritual level, spiritual conversation of it, like I don't even tell people my age. I don't have an age. I know people think like people in person will be like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 1,000. And they're like, what?
I love it.
And people think on my live streams that I'm fucking around. I'm like, no, the same person you get on my live is the same person you get when I'm talking to you in person. Like, because for me, like age is a limiting factor. I'm never going to let that limit me. Like I'm infinite, bro. I'm a star.
Love that.
Like I'm an entire universe. Like, and when I perceive myself as such, that's not to be egotistical. It's because I've tapped in with this energy that doesn't have any limitations. So if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like, I'll make this amount of money per year. No, fuck that. I'm thinking about how many people can I help per year, you know? And if I can speak this truth and then they feel the way that I'm taking it, like the way I'm pushing out this energy of like not having limitations, then look at how much abundance that is.
Yes.
You know? So for me, like I knew, and I'll say just this really quickly, because I don't know, maybe you've had this experience, but I did a live stream like the second month my channel was around, right? So like super new, probably didn't even have 1,000 subscribers. And I had somebody reach out to me, and I won't say their name because it's super personal, but they told me that they were about to kill themselves. Like they were super, super suicidal. So I, you know, I got on a call with them, and I just, because like, you need to call me. And it was really rough for me to accept doing that. But after having that conversation and just having that person tell me everything they were feeling that they couldn't tell anyone, because they were, you know, this was the thing. They were aware of the knowledge that I was sharing and they couldn't share it with anyone. Yeah. Everyone in their life thought they were crazy. Their girlfriend thought they were, it was a lot. Right. Yeah. So what I learned through that experience is like, wow, man, like what I'm doing, it's not just fucking YouTube. Like it's so much more than that, man. Like, and also at the same time, like it's quite a sacrifice to be putting out these words with so freely, because of course it brings a lot of hate. It brings a lot of negativity. And like we spoke about yesterday, like it's all about being an alchemist. Like you need to transmutate any energy you get. So if people want to blame you and get mad at you and frustrated at you because of you speaking your truth, that's on them. Like you as a creator always need to remember, like, your words are so powerful that they create both extremes. They create immense amount of love and they create a lot of hate. And just throughout these experiences, it's really made me respect like the process and say to myself, like, wow, man, like I'm so grateful for this experience. I'm so grateful to be able to come out and help people or just share my truth with people.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, as we go into, like you talked about, this new wave that we're heading into, and this ability, like the technology, right? It's a tool. It's a tool, just like a gun. You could take a gun and murder somebody. You take a gun and hunt for food for your family. And like this tool that we've been honored and given to, this microphone here, the cell phone that I post stories on, and TikTok and all this stuff that we use. So I'm a projector of social media. I'm not a consumer. And so like people like, how do you manage the social media, and how do you like not get caught? I just project. I project onto social media the information that is downloaded to me, to people, and I was deemed an influencer, a creator, whatever that means. And so I always try to encourage people too, like, everybody's story is super important. Like I was doing this when 10 people were watching, like 10 people. There's some videos they go down. There's like 10 people would watch the videos. I'm like, what? But then same thing would happen where somebody would reach out and be like, man, that one story you said made me a better father, or a better team member, or I was able to build my business. And so hopefully that you'll find encouragement in all of everybody listening to this, and all of you guys are super important. I always share that. I mean, different fingerprint, different DNA. Every single person is so unbelievably important. And if you go to be a creator, right, you're going to have those people who are trying to bash your creation or stop your creation. And to me, it's just people who they see something in you that they want, or they see something in them that they need to work on. And I think that's the hardest part, like as a creator, to rise above, is because you'll look through a bunch of positive comments and then you'll see some negative comments, right? And those things grab onto you from a psychological level. And so, you know, as we head into this new framework, what are some things you're working on personally in your personal life as we head into this new world? I know you're constantly working on these things, and you're not affected by the war and all that stuff, but what are some things you're personally working on?
I'm definitely working on being like just more grateful and present every day in my life. Like I've been really sticking to a solid morning routine where I'm including really like intense physical exercise. And I also do some, I'll just write down a list of things that I'm grateful for every single day. That's another practice that I've been doing.
Yes.
I've been doing a lot of mudras, like hand. It's called like yoga of the hands. So I've been doing a lot of mudras because they're really powerful and just keep me like much more balanced. I've been playing guitar like 2 to 3 hours a day. So I'm working on being just more balanced, because the last year for me was really like about building up this business, building up my connections with people. And ever since like kind of the last 2 months or so, I've just started to like look myself in the mirror and ask myself, like, what's making me happy? Like, is it like, so yeah, what you said before was really important for people who are becoming creators, or who we're all creators, right? But who are trying to like, you know, maybe leverage on their creation for something, you know, whatever it is. And with that being said, the negativity always outshines the positivity until you decide to change that. You can make that change. And I had to go through that. I'm sure you went through that. Like we've all gone through that. And what people don't see behind the scenes is the amount of work and effort that goes into doing this, you know? Like people don't know. If they saw my daily schedule, they would be like, wow, you know, like that's insane. So, you know, I don't need to come up on the microphone and tell people my life schedule to prove that point. Like it just is what it is. And I'm trying to work more at like just deleting time and focusing more on myself, not being so caught up in the game of being a content creator or being a YouTuber or whatever that is. I really want to get it to the point where like everything I'm doing is just completely free flowed, you know, my whole schedule, like have no meetings. You know, it's just like that would really be the ideal, but I know I have some time to work out that and get to that level.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah. So some of the things I'm working on, and as we'll wrap this up, we're coming up on an hour, but first of all, again, we see people already commenting. We're going to be launching a program for you guys. We're coming together and launching a program, which is going to be absolutely revolutionary. I mean, it's going to be life-changing for a lot of you who are really awakening to a new reality. But so some of the things that I'm working on is the way that I find productivity for me is to help people, is that I find, so in order to see if I'm being productive, sometimes I sit still. So I'm leaving for about 7 days just to go sit still. In order to see if I'm being heard, I'm going to stop talking. So in about 5 days, I'm going to stop talking for a week. And in order to see if I'm being felt, I'm going to stop feeling myself. So I'm just going to go be present, because for me it's like the same thing with you. It's like my schedule is absolutely out of control. It's in a positive way. I always say I'm overblessed, never overstressed, because I asked for this life, and I'm very grateful for this life that I've been presented. And so I just encourage people, as you listen to what me and Waters Above are saying, is just, you know, trying to find that North Star for yourself as we go into this new world and, new economy and new life. And everything that will always remain the same is you, right? And who are you? And I always say in the process of becoming a millionaire, crypto millionaire, whatever you're doing, the most important is who are you becoming? And wherever you go, you're going to find yourself. And that's what I keep telling people, I'm going away, but I'm just going to find myself when I get there. Just because I go to another location or another country, I'll still find myself. And so, number one, I just wanted to show some gratitude to you and the relationship that we build, not only on this creator channel and what we're doing, but friendships as well. I'm very, very grateful for you, man. I'm very thankful. You've taught me a lot as well, and I'm really honored to come in alignment with you. And I don't know if you see it, it's been 333 over and over again on this live, which is like it's been 333 333 333, which is really, really cool. But
that's dope. That's a powerful number. That's a number that really aligns with me and my code.
That's so cool. It like literally has been staying on 333 a lot. So we love you guys. It's been about an hour in, and we're going to continue these on. So we're going to be doing these monthly. And then if you're in the Warrior Academy, which a lot of people on here are, we're very honored to have Waters Above come on our Thursday crypto call. It's the one that's hosted by me on Thursday in our private academy. You can come in there. He's going to be presenting to our Warriors a baseline around geometria and helping get some basic knowledge around that. And then we'll continue to bring him into our academy, helping us out. And we got a lot of really cool things coming up. So how can people find you? What's the best way to contact you or find you, your courses?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel, Waters Above Crypto. Even if you typed in Gematria Crypto, you probably find me show up, as well as I have a membership through Patreon, and it's my master community. So anyone who wanted to get more exclusive content, I do a weekly podcast where I go over a bunch of different crypto altcoins, and I also go over like my market wrap up. So my YouTube content that I've been putting out lately is very based in decoding, and my what's going on over there in my Patreon is more exclusive content behind the scenes, going over some more coins. And then I have a website, watersabovecrypto.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And everything will be description down below. We'll make sure that we have that content for you guys, but keep a lookout, Warriors. We're getting everything set up. We'll probably be launching. It's going to be obviously limited spots. So you're going to want to get in there as soon as you can. And the program will be launching around back end of April. And so we're working on some really, really neat stuff for you guys. It's going to be a 4-week course, a 4-week boot camp. We're really awakening you to the great I am inside of you and bringing our knowledges together, and experiential, technical, and we're going to give you some of the tips and tools that we use to awaken. So it's going to be really, really exciting work. So we appreciate you. We love you. And as we always say, Warriors, get your shit together. Let's go.